When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous. About the past and about the future.
Welcome back to Draftvice. Oh my God, we got Ricky back again to talk safeties. Like he had to go very far.
Yeah.
Yes, we split the episode in two, talking defensive backs. But it's great to have you to talk safeties as well because you were a safety.
Yes, I was at one point in time.
Yes. Also, just an amazing human being. If you want, you can follow the show at Draftvice on Twitter, at Draftvice_football on Instagram. It's on the iTunes. It's on the Spotify. Go ahead and subscribe, like, follow, comment, and we will shout you out later on. And also Mondays, I mean, there's only going to be one more of the Monday mock drafts, but there's also going to be a live stream of the draft night and day 2, a live stream as well, where you'll get to hear all the great comments and witty banter of Harry Van Ness and me and all the people we have on the panel. The draft night's going to be a live in-person show in Nanuet, New York. If you've never been to Nanuet, New York, it is a great place filled with strip malls and strippers, but primarily strip malls. And then there's one strip joint and a billiards hall, 2 of them, but we're at the other one. So come to the Spot Billiards on 304 in Nanuet, New York, and watch us live. Or you can go there on another night and just go play pool because they've been very nice to us to let us go do this in the middle of their establishment.
Kind of giving them a free promo,
right? Well, it's free-ish. We're doing the show there. That's our payment. Hey, thank you for letting us do this crazy stuff. So, yes, we're going to be doing that live, and then we will be analyzing the picks as they come in live, in-show person. Me, Dr. D. de Blasio will be my co-host that night. He was on the live stream last year, and we'll have a panel of guests. We'll do audience participation. We'll give out participation trophies, except there will be no trophies because I don't want to pay that kind of money to make a trophy. And we should just move on to the real parts of this episode where we are going to talk safeties, the things that make you feel so good at night. And right off the bat, it's an interesting safety class.
Yeah.
Because there's not that true number one safety that you would want to take top 10. There's 2 guys in this class who I'd want to fuse together to make a top 10 safety, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But there's not that number one guy. There's no Derwin James. There's no Jamal Adams. There's no Malik Hooker. There's guys who can do some of those roles and can maybe end up doing them as well as those players.
Yeah.
But there's not a guy without a wart necessarily. The number one guy on a lot of teams' boards is, not a lot of teams, at least a lot of people's boards, a lot of the media analyst boards, Trevon Moehrig. TCU safety, one of the 2 TCU safeties in this year's draft. He's the bigger one, about 6'2", about 4 inches taller than the other one, maybe 5 or maybe even more than that. I think Ardarius Washington came in at 5'8". Yeah, so almost 5 inches taller. I would maybe argue that Ardarius had a little bit better, some of the better instincts, but I think what you get at Trevon Moehrig is you get this big athletic safety, ran a 4.5, and I think he ran a 4.5 on a bad back. I think he had actually injured his back, and he still did his whole, workout for his pro day. Very good athleticism. Was primarily the TCU's defense ran a lot of too high looks.
Yeah.
So he's probably better off if you really want to get him doing what he was already doing, a split safety role where he's not necessarily singled high a lot. He's going to be single high. Yeah, he's not going to be that true center fielder, kind of like an Anthony Harris kind of guy. Where you're going to have him up there, you're going to have split safeties. You can move him down into the box a little bit. Good awareness, good tackler. Again, overall, maybe the safest safety is the weirdest way to put it.
Yep.
What you're getting out of him. He's going to be a high-end player for you. I don't know I don't think there's a true, when people talk ceilings, I don't know if he's the guy who you're going to be he's that all pro every year guy. He can maybe be a Pro Bowler, really good player. He's probably he might sneak into the first round because I feel like he's the one guy who doesn't have any of the warts. Has a solid athletic profile, good age. He doesn't have any of the age issues like some of the other safeties might have or other players in the draft might have, where you're playing and you're 25 and you're beating up on children. Just don't do that. We'll talk about some of those guys too. Don't worry. Child beaters are fine if you're beating them while you're playing football, is all I'm saying. Don't beat your children. Adrian Peterson. Trevon Moehrig, very good safety. Do you have any comments on him? I know there's a lot of I think you kind of mirrored a lot of what we were talking about earlier.
No, he's like you said, a good athlete. 4.5's plenty good for safety for what he has to do.
And estimate that he can maybe be better than that, even than that athletic profile.
And it's not that I don't think he can. It's not that I don't think he can't play the center field. But like I said, he's good at dealing with the cover 2 split safety. If they needed to roll down, it felt like they really would need more of Ardarius Washington kind of coming down and playing more of the slot because he's better instincts, a little bit more of a playmaker in my opinion, more of a pure football player. But
if we want to jump right into Ardarius Washington,
I know you love him, so I wanted to. But I'm sure we'll get to him. But as far as Moulding, he has a much higher. I know we talk about the ceilings with these guys, but I think he has a much higher ceiling because of his athleticism. I think he's actually pretty good at recognizing route concepts, at least from the split safety scheme. And I think I understand why he's the number one guy for a lot of people. But again, with this draft, it's not like you have number one, game changer.
Yeah.
I think there's other guys that are really creeping up on him, and I can actually see being better pros. But yeah, I don't have any real knocks about him. I have no issue with him being number one safety.
Yeah, that's the weird thing. He's fine. He's like that, it's good, whatever. I'm fine with it. Do what you will. I do think being 6'2", his size, his speed profile, I think it's all good. It's all okay, I could see where that can go. Where
he checks a lot of boxes, but not a lot of wow. And I think that's with a lot of the safeties, I think.
Yeah. So there's going to be. Is there a particular one you wanted to jump onto next?
Well, I was looking into, and this became up a little more recent, but out of Central Florida, Richie Grant. I think he's a guy that's around the ball a lot.
Yeah, Senior Bowl dude.
He's around the ball a lot, got on more and more people's radars as time went on. It just seems like a lot of the safeties and corners have gone hand to hand in this draft. Like, you're getting a lot of people from the same college at safety and
UCF
corner
has
in
a
the
lot
top
of
10.
guys.
UCF, but like there was a couple other schools like Florida State that had a couple guys that were. It's almost like they're complementing each other, and it's just like which one's more important. But that's a conversation for another time. But in terms of Richie Grant, makes a lot of plays. Seems to be a good student of the game, at least from what I understand, because he's always in good position.
Yes.
Pretty complete safety. I don't have his measurables as far as athleticism. You might be able to know. It's not like it blew me away on tape, so I'd be surprised if he was a 4.3, 4.4 guy.
He's a 4.49 guy.
4.49. Okay, so high end 4.4. That
so tested. Yeah, same range as him.
But always in position. So I think that. This is a guy, I mean, he seemed to have decent ball skills.
He was more the single high guy.
Yeah, that's why I almost feel like he popped more in a lot of ways because he was always around the ball. He was good at reading quarterbacks' eyes. He was good at understanding, all right, if the slot corner's going out or the tight end's running across, I got to turn my hips to the backside and see if there's a deep post coming. Like, he just seemed to be on top of that. He's a willing tackler. He has no problem coming up. He has good reaction to come up and help out in the run. So I was a fan of his. Not saying I'd 100% put him above Trevon Moulding, but
I buy the argument. I know people who like him better than Trevon Moulding.
Yeah.
And especially if you're running a single high scheme, if you're running, especially like I said before, the Seattle Seahawks scheme, you're talking about like Dan Quinn down in Dallas. I know all the Dallas people love Richie Grant right now. I do a live stream with one of the big guys I like to tune in, Jayland. He's a Dallas dude.
I can see him being a good.
He loves. Richie Grant would be perfect for
like
that
a much
scheme.
better Jeff Heath. I can see him being. They stuck with Jeff Heath for a long time. I see a decent comp there with maybe a little bit more.
Better
ceiling,
athleticism,
a little bit more ceiling on Richie Grant,
and he showed out at the Senior Bowl. He showed he could stick to guys in man-to-man coverage. So maybe even if you were looking to maybe roll him down into the slot, he could do that very well.
He's a guy that really benefited from the Senior Bowl.
Yes.
Showed up, showed what he had to do, answered some questions about some things he wasn't asked to do in college.
Yes, and again, his athleticism is really good. Again, 4.49 40. Even if you're adding 0.06 seconds to the hand time, still in the 4.5 range. Doesn't matter. He's still doing really well. And then very good 3-cone. I think it was a 6.78 3-cone.
Yeah, that's impressive.
That's top end.
That's corner.
Yeah, that's corner level 3-cone. 5'10". Like, again, I think this is a guy you could drop down in the slot if you wanted to use him like that. Mm-hmm. He's going to be good at being a single high free safety. He made a lot of good plays, and he was like a true. He had that good football IQ as far as being able to make plays like that. I've heard people have different opinions on his tackling.
He's definitely a willing tackler, and
I didn't have any
he has
problems
good reaction
with it.
coming up, and he seems to be in the right run fits if he ever needs to.
I think it was one of those things where people saw one thing in one game.
Yeah.
Like they watched these 4 games and like, I hate him as a tackler. And maybe they also had some of the 2019 tape in their head too. And they're like, I didn't like him as a tackler then. I don't like him as a tackler now. And there's some people who really like him as a tackler.
I wouldn't say I really like him.
I wouldn't say I don't think it's a weakness. It's not a guy who because when you're thinking about guys on the back end, we're going to talk about another guy who I think is maybe.
He's not a guy that doesn't like contact.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. And he's an aggressive tackler. I think with regards to the form, it can kind of be all over the place, but that's almost every safety at the NFL level. Yeah. So, I mean, he might fit in.
Yeah, like how I kind of look at him as like Marcus Williams and Marcus May, those kind of guys.
Yeah.
Like where
and
he
Marcus
could be
May is a really, I mean, you want to be compared to someone who's had a hell of a year.
Yeah, eventually did develop kind of almost to be able to play corner a little bit.
Yeah.
So he became a very versatile piece for the Jets. That's kind of how I look at Richie Grant. Very versatile kind of guy. I think could play single high and would probably be best in that role, and as well as being moved into the slot a little bit. I wouldn't want him really matched up on tight ends because they're going to probably have a size advantage to him. But again, if you're putting him up on maybe some smaller tight ends, like you're like a guy who's like 6'2", like Brevin Jordan in this draft class, or like the guy who just went to New England, the tight end, the Jonnu Smith, like a smaller one, I think he'd be able to match up to those guys really well. I like him a lot. The one issue I have with him, a little bit older of a prospect, 24 years old, 25, getting close to 25. So there's teams that are going to have him off their board because of the age thing.
True. But then you argue maturity.
Yeah, and like now the real question is development. Like kind of like where do you see him going? Is he going to get any better? And also where he's going to be at the end of the contract. Safety, though, you're a day 2 guy. I don't mind having guys who are a little bit older at safety because you might not be re-signing him to the second deal anyway. You know, you can't always keep your guys that you draft in the second, third round. So I'd be happy to take him second, third round pick. Like I think, especially you're running a lot more of that single high free safety. You're looking to mix it up a little bit.
I like how you mentioned Dallas.
Dallas is a good one. Well, I know all the Dallas people love him. Everybody, even guys who cover the Dallas Cowboys like him a lot. So he's been, I feel like they have him penciled in 44. They want him so bad. Guys who I know that cover the team and fans of the team really like Richie Grant. So, and I think that's a perfect fit for him. Another team that might be an interesting one is the Raiders because they've had safety issues forever.
Yeah.
You'd have to bet on Mike Mayock and John Gruden drafting well, which I don't know if I buy that, but they might listen to Gus Bradley, who's their new D coordinator, and he might be like, listen, you know what? Get him in there. I'll use.
You might need to be help with the back end and the mistakes that Jonathan Abram makes.
Jonathan Abram shouldn't be on the back end anyway.
That's what I mean. No, I'm saying like
he's
he
a
could
strong
cover
safety.
up a lot of the. If he's playing free and Abram's playing strong, I think that might be a good compliment.
And something tells me Mayock and Gruden don't mind the age thing. They might actually like the fact that he's 24, going on 300 years old. So they might not mind the older prospect. So I like Richie Grant a lot. Did you have another one in mind, or you want me to bounce to another guy?
I would like to bring on Javon Holland. I like him. I like his versatility. I'm a fan of his.
I did not love his tape as much.
No?
So if I'm going for a guy who's going to be a slot safety hybrid, I think he's got the better athletic profile compared to Elijah Moulding, but I would prefer Elijah Moulding. I like Moulding's tape.
Corner versus, and you would argue that Holland's a better athlete. But
yeah, I think Holland's the better athlete, and maybe I think there's also the idea maybe you do stick him at corner and see what happens with him.
Yeah, I think he could be one of those guys that does the reverse.
Yeah, where you say, you know what, let's try him. We're talking about when we talked about the last episode, Demarius Randall, kind of where they took him, where he played safety in college, and they swapped him to corner in the NFL. I can kind of see them doing that with him because he has that. I was
going to say he could play slot corner though as well because
he did play slot corner quite a bit.
Right? So how New England, another Oregon guy, Patrick Chong, he did a lot of different things for them, and that's kind of why I see. Oh, there seems to be a trend here, and if somebody is interested or they liked what some people were able to do with Chong, another Oregon guy, Javon Holland, kind of seems to be play of that same style.
Yeah. I didn't see as much aggressive. Like, for instance, that's why I maybe like Moulding better in that role. More aggressive, better tackler. Willing, maybe because I think Moulding's a better safety guy.
Yeah.
And where I'm looking at Holland, I'm going like, I don't mind him in coverage.
It's almost like they should switch positions.
Yeah, well, they're basically playing the same position. They're each playing like X amount in safety.
But you would argue one could maybe play the outside corner better and that's the safety, and the one that could play safety better might be the inside corner.
Yeah, and I know some people have had him on boards at corner and safety. Both these guys have had him at corner and safety on their boards. They both played a lot of slot. I like Moulding's slot instincts. Both these guys go together pretty well talking about them because they are very similar profile players as far as where they're going in the next level. Very Buda Bakery kind of guys. I think where I wish this is another one of the two players I wish I could just fuse them into one kind of deal. I wish I could take some of like Moulding's like mentality and football IQ and tackling ability and put that into Javon Holland and then like make that one guy take his athleticism and just put them together and you really would have Buda Baker. So I like both the guys. I like Moulding a little bit better on the tape scale of it. And I like Holland's athleticism
maybe
where he can maybe go.
How you're thinking and drafts both of them.
Yeah, right. Well, we gotta get the Patara earrings from Dragon Ball Z. We're gonna fuse them together.
Yeah.
We're just gonna make them wear one jersey.
Yeah,
Moulding's just gonna tell Holland what to do all the time. So I like both those guys. Different. I maybe like Moulding higher and Javon Holland a little bit lower. Maybe I'm more of the inclination. Maybe Holland is maybe third round for me, later third round to me, where I think some people have him higher third round or even like second round guy.
I feel like he's a little more variable in that. Like he's a little more sporadic in where people have him, where Moulding's a little more consistent.
I see a lot of people like Moulding as a second round guy. I don't like, as much as I like Moulding the player, as far as the value of taking him in the second round, where you look at other players who might be there, I don't know if I would have him truly as a second round guy. Maybe like that fringe second round where you're at 60, that range kind of guy. Because this draft has a lot of weird depth at weird positions, and you're going to get that point where you're like at 55, and there's going to be maybe an edge rusher like Peyton Turner on the board, and you go, oh, maybe I need an edge rusher more, and I kind of like...
You can get a corner later.
Yeah, or like, well, you could sign a slot corner. Slot corners are a cheaper contract, too.
Right.
Also, safety has like one of the cheaper contracts in the NFL. Both those positions are a devalued position that maybe there's a little bit of arbitrage you can get out of that by signing those kind of players and drafting those kind of players and developing them.
Chris Harris was an undrafted free agent, became one of the best slot corners that we've seen.
He was also really good outside corner too, so that helped out. He was just really good, which he was one of your favorites for like the longest time, being a Denver Broncos fan
for sure.
So yeah, I like both those guys. I like Richie Grant. If Richie Grant was 3 years younger, I would maybe argue Richie Grant should be the number one safety in this draft class because he's 24 going on 25, and there's...
Yeah, I don't doubt they hold that against him.
Yeah, I shouldn't hold it against him too much. I still have him as a second-round guy. I still like him, but like, whereas if he was 2 or 3 years younger, maybe he'd be the first corner, a first safety off the board, maybe like end of the first round. I think he's going to be probably more like top 50 in the second round, solid dude, which, by the way, before this cycle... he was probably not being talked about even as a second-round pick that much. So between the Senior Bowl where he showed out very well in coverage, I liked Richie Grant a lot. Who's the next guy you want to talk about? Let's talk a little bit about Elijah Moulding, Javon Holland.
I'm a big fan, and we might have conflicting opinions on this, but I'm actually a big fan of Hamza Naziruddin.
Yes, Naziruddin. Yes. I like him a lot too.
Before the show, and I just lost it, but I like him a lot because he reminds me, and this is very generous, but he reminds me of a Cam Chancellor. He's big, he's physical, he's an enforcer, but he's no slouch in coverage either.
Yes.
Like he can do things above and beyond his size, and not quite as big as Cam Chancellor, but kind of plays in a similar way.
6'3", 220 something, so he's not small by any means.
No, just Cam was kind of a freak in terms. He was like Megatron at safety.
The issues with Hamza is, one, he's coming off an injury-riddled season after prior having ending his season on I think it was the injury. I know basically this season he didn't really get to play much.
Yeah.
He came back late in the season. He really didn't get to play much. You really didn't get to see the development from him.
Yep.
Went to the Senior Bowl. Had some solid reps against tight ends in coverage. 6'3" kind of guy. Again, he's going to be like a tight end eraser.
I was going to say that's another reason with the explosion of tight ends. And now you got everyone talking about Kyle Pitts. A lot of these teams are going to be like, well, how do we defend Kyle Pitts and George Kittle and Travis Kelce? And
I'd argue he couldn't cover Kyle Pitts, but maybe a guy who's
nobody can cover
Kyle Austin Hooper.
Pitts.
He could definitely cover Austin Hooper.
But they want a guy that can match up size and at least have the close athleticism. That's one of the reasons that they tried to use that with Cam Chancellor a lot. But this guy is that's one of the reasons why I think his stock can shoot up. It's almost like it goes hand in hand when you start to think about how high they're valuing tight ends. Now, I know there's a big drop-off after Kyle Pitts in this draft.
Yeah.
But in terms of where the NFL's at,
yes,
you might think, how do we defend them? We need smaller, more athletic linebackers that can run, or we need a bigger safety that can cover them. So it's
and that's also becoming a thing in the NFL too. Is turning safeties almost kind of into your quasi linebacker as guys get smaller. As 11 personnel is such a big thing,
right?
To be able to match up better. There's been a lot of talk of moving him and then another safety in this draft class, Divine Diablo, into a quasi nickel backer, linebacker role. Maybe move them to weak side linebacker, and they are literally playing linebacker / safety kind of in their defense.
Right.
I think both those guys would be really good at it. Divine Diablo actually tested at at 4.4s, which I think was a little surprising because he's a little slower sometimes on tape, but then other times he would catch up with a receiver downfield. So
maybe it's just he's
yeah, sometimes just
conserving his energy.
Yeah, I kind of buy that. But he had good zone awareness too. Divine Diablo
could be baiting people too.
Yeah, he had very good zone awareness, very good. I think if you're moving him closer to the line of scrimmage, I like that. That was where he really excelled and shined. I didn't like it when they put him further back. So his ability to excel in that area. And again, be very good with the coverage aspect of it, and then also try to get him to to stuff run fits.
Yeah,
I like that a lot for Divine Diablo. I think again, Hamza Naziruddin's another good one for that. I think he's going to fall mainly because again, you didn't get the full eval from this year, the injury riddled season, coming back from a bad injury. You don't know if he's going to be fully back to his athleticism because he didn't test.
Right.
This is like what I call the Gregory Rousseau problem is you don't know what they could still do from a year ago or if it even applies because you're talking about a different player of a different, even just like what the speed is. Did they lose it? Did they have this? And he didn't even opt out. He just had injury concerns. He looked pretty good when he was at the Senior Bowl. He had, I think he popped his quad or something, and that's why he couldn't do the 40 or something. So that was, and now maybe that might be something where he just wasn't testing well behind the scenes, and they said something. But I think Hamza, I'd be very interested again getting him closer to the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
Divine Diablo, Virginia Tech dude, get him closer to the line of scrimmage. Those guys, I like those safeties a lot for that kind of a role. I don't know how teams value that. It depends on what your team needs. I would take those guys end of the third round, mid-third round, depending on what I was looking to do, especially if I didn't take a linebacker and all the linebackers were going very quick. If you don't get like a Jamin Davis or a guy like or Baron Browning, now you get one of these guys who it's like we'll get athletic safeties to kind of be our quasi linebackers.
He's a guy that fits into.
But yes, I liked Hamza Naziruddin too. And it was just him coming back from it.
A lot of questions for sure.
Yeah, and then I don't know how teams are going to value him as far as that goes.
I think that's what you have to do with this draft class with safeties, though. I feel like you need to start looking at potential for a lot of them because it's not like there's these real safe picks at the real top end of the draft.
Yes.
So you're looking at a guy like, what if he did play? Could he be that first round overall pick?
Yeah,
maybe.
So we're going to talk about the one guy who I wish had Andre Cisco. Mm-hmm. He is the guy who could be that crazy single high free safety. He has that athleticism. He has 4.3 wheels. Mm-hmm. Didn't get to test his pro day because he tore his ACL last season. He plays for Syracuse as well, along with Afetu Melifonwu, True Williams, those guys. But he was a ball hawk. When they played him at free safety, it was insane the way he moves around. Now the problem is they stuck him at linebacker and like close to the line of scrimmage, and that was not where you need him to be. He is not the guy who you want trying to run down and tackle people. You want him far away as you can, and it's like, I see ball, I get ball.
There might be an indictment on the other safety or whatever else they had available, that they felt he was their best option to do that, even if it's taken away him out of his strength.
Well, I think part of it was they wanted to see him maybe in that quasi-robber role kind of deal, but they put him too close for it to be the robber role. My argument, he was playing literally linebacker points.
I was wondering if at times it's based on, is he the quarterback of their defense? Is he the smartest guy on the field? Because then a lot of times they put them in that rolling safety role, and he might be the one calling the plays. And sometimes if you have, even though he might be better at free safety, you're like, well, this guy knows the plays. and he's a better tackler than the other guy. Like we're even though he would benefit from being at free safety, it's kind of like this is what we.
Well,
have.
he's not the best tackler. I'll tell you, that's the two. There were two major issues people have with him. One was he did have blown plays. A part of that was because of the defense, which is this weird mess of a scheme. Like I said before, Syracuse's scheme was not most conducive to their players.
It sounds like
and they weren't running like a pure like NFL level defense where, like if I had Trill Williams, Ifeatu Melifonwu, and Andre Cisco, I would just be trying to coach up the Seattle scheme and just see what I can get out of those guys.
Let them play.
Let them play where you would see them being in the NFL, because keep Andre Cisco as far from the line of scrimmage as possible. Let him utilize that vision, because when they did bring him closer, that was when the decisions went out the window. Right. That was when he wasn't doing what he really needed to do. It's hard to assess that for some people, but dude, again, his athleticism was crazy. His ball hawking skills was crazy. Like, if it wasn't for the torn ACL,
sounds like a free safety role.
Yes, he is the guy. Like, he's the guy. What I said before was, we were talking earlier about Ardarius Washington, right? Mm-hmm. He's a 5'8" guy, didn't test super athletic, but dude, he just knows his shit. Great tackler. You could put him close to the line of scrimmage. Great out of the slot. But he's 5'8".
Tyrann Mathieu too.
Yeah,
just a little. Tyrann Mathieu didn't blow you away with his 40 time. He ran well.
Yeah,
but
But if you took his mentality, his mindset, and you put it in Andre Cisco's body, you get a top 10 pick.
For sure.
So that's the thing that I have the issue with like, I just wish that you could do that where you just plug it in. I think if you take him and you put him in a scheme where he's getting, put into a spot where, hey, we're putting you at single high free safety. These are your reads. These are what you have to key in on. He was good when he did that. When they were putting him at linebacker, these quasi-safety roles, moving him around, yes, you want versatility, but not at the expense of what your player does well.
I agree. I just wonder if it's an indictment on the other safeties they had available.
Yes, that's true too. Like, that could be also it.
Do the other safeties not know the plays as well? Is he more experienced? Is he better at recognizing those concepts down below? Is he their better tackler in the safety room? Like,
is he just their best tackler? Yeah, is he just their athlete?
Yes. Which sometimes happens,
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're too smart, I don't know that this is the case, but if you know the playbook the best, sometimes that forces the coach's hand to put you in that position to be the one to kind of call the defense and get everyone lined up right, even if it takes you out of a position that you might be best suited to your athletic ability. You've seen that all the time in high school and college football.
Yeah, and he uses athleticism really to his advantage, and he might be that guy who's going to develop more the football IQ as he gets into the NFL, gets into a scheme that works for him. One other guy, there's a few single high safeties in this draft class. One other guy who is getting a lot of talk lately, been a late riser, not the best athleticism. Like, Richie Grant and Andre Cisco are definitely the better pure athletes, but he's relatively newer to the position, and he had a high football IQ, is Jamar Johnson.
Yeah, he's flying up boards. Indiana, right?
Yes, Indiana. He's the guy who made Justin Fields look like a turnip. He might be the reason why Justin Fields isn't going top 3 or top 4 or top whatever, because he was such good in coverage, and it's football IQ.
If only Zach Wilson played against him.
Right? If he only played against Indiana, if only the coaching staff at Ohio State, just ran it.
He changed the Jets' future forever.
Right?
That's what he did.
The Jets, or even just the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, them too.
Like that, like that's the other thing, is teams just don't want to even trade. Like, if Justin Fields is not going top 3, that he probably did affect that to some degree. Now, granted, teams know way more than we do with that stuff.
Yeah,
I'll do a quarterbacks episode. And there's quarterbacks I like. It's a really good quarterback class. It really is. The top 5 guys are all relatively good.
Yeah, I think we're just extra picky because this is what we do every year. And even though these are top prospects, like when the year Geno Smith was coming out and he was taken at the end of the first round, like, we were really picky on those 5. Now we have to be really picky on these 5, even though they're not back end early 2, they're front end first. But that's for another day.
Yeah, I've told people this before. Go check out the Kurt Warner interview with PFF and the Greg Rosenthal interview with Ross Tucker, and they go over like their assessment of Mac Jones, their assessment of Justin Fields, their ability to throw, what they see them doing in the NFL, maybe why a coach might look at maybe Mac Jones over Justin Fields. And I think the way they analyze those biases was so good. I think it's just something people should tune into, because it kind of gives you an idea of an evaluator from that perspective, from somebody who's played those positions before in the NFL. Both those guys are former NFL quarterbacks.
Right.
But yeah, Jamar Johnson, back to him making everybody look like a turnip. He very limited sample size. Basically, I think he's been one season as a safety. He could be that true single high free safety role. Kind of reminds me of Jesse Bates coming out, the guy.
Wow.
So a guy who might be going a little bit later, probably because of the athleticism stuff. He's probably going to go third round.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'm thinking third, fourth round guy who probably ends up having that high end play. So, Justin Reed of the Texans, another guy, like those kind of, hey, this guy actually ended up being a really good single high free safety. There's a few of these in this draft class where you go, I kind of like these guys. Like I could see a team taking a shot on him and being like, hey, we're going to stick you in this scheme. Todd Bowles getting him for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would be a steal because you have Antoine Winfield coming down, being a game wrecker, and then you also now would have a true single high free safety who you can coach up. Again, I think that's why I think the Bucs are going to go safety at some point in the draft. They might not go at 32, but maybe at 64 they go safety.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I think the Buccaneers would be a good fit for any one of these single high free safety guys. Just because I think Bowles could coach them up very well too and get usage out of them in that scheme.
And the Bucs are in a position where they don't really have a lot of needs, or at least pressing needs. So if you want to take a guy you take a chance on that you could develop.
Well, I think the safety position outside of Antoine Winfield is really the biggest need for them. Maybe, another D tackle, because eventually Sue's going to be out of there. Eventually JPP is going to be out of there.
You never have enough pass rushers.
So I see Tampa Bay as an opportunity for one of those guys. I mentioned Dallas for Richie Grant because I just think all the Dallas people love him. I think also because there's a lot of Dallas coverage guys who love him too, so it kind of pumps it up a little bit. Outside of those guys, we were talking before about Elijah Moulding and Javon Holland.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely going to be teams that want to utilize those kind of roles. Again, Tampa Bay loves those kind of guys.
Correct.
So if they can get their hands on those guys, they love DBs. They draft DBs in the top 3 rounds every year or so, especially in a deep DB draft class. That's why they developed into having such a great defense at the end of the year.
Right.
Other teams that could use guys like that, like you said before, the Patriots love guys like that.
Sure.
Versatility. Guys who they can maybe, again, develop and turn into really good role players, really good, really good pieces to their defense.
Mm-hmm.
And again, those are most of the safeties that I really didn't touch too much on Ardarius Washington, so I'll touch on him a little bit.
I know you want to bring him.
And then we talked about Shaun Wade last time. But again, that's a guy who I think is going to end up transitioning to safety in the NFL just because he's going to maybe be another one of those guys who, he's going to probably go day 3. So you're not spending a big pick on him. And I feel like this year's draft class is a lot of guys who play a lot of different roles.
Mm-hmm.
James Wiggins out of Cincinnati is another guy who's like another interesting role player, but I don't think he tested very well. So I think maybe teams might be a little bit more out on him, or he might be more of a day 3 guy. Paris Ford tested horribly out of Pitt. So I think people are totally out on him. I think all the pick guys outside of Rashad Weaver, I think their stock's gone all the way down to day 3. I think Rashad Weaver, even if he does still go day 3, is going to be like a round 4 pick.
Yeah,
because I also think Rashad Weaver's actually a really good D lineman, but all the other pick guys tested horribly. Whether it's Paris Campbell or I think it was Patrick Jones is the other guy. So yeah, the pick guys I don't pay attention to anymore. Ardarius Washington, again, like you said before, has a little bit of Tyrann Mathieu to him. I honestly think there's moments where he looks better than Trevon Moehrig.
Yeah,
and he is the heart of that defense. Amazing tackler. Really good in coverage. I think he's going to be picked up to be, like we were saying before, a slot corner on a team, to maybe be that quasi-safety linebacker, safety slot corner role that a lot of teams have been targeting. And there's argument that, he's in that kind of mix with Elijah Moulding. Now, granted, Elijah Moulding's got 2 inches on him. I don't think that's a lot, but that's still something.
It makes,
a little bit of a difference. A little bit heftier, too. He's got more weight to him. He's got another 20, 30 pounds to him.
Right.
So, and then, like we said before, Javon Holland's got way more athleticism than those 2 guys. So teams might look at the athleticism, see the solid, see some of the solid coverage that they saw, and they go, okay, you know what, we like this guy.
I would just argue that the instincts are really difficult. You can't coach those.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds like woo-woo, but it's, he's a football player. It's a cliche. People hate that term, but it worked out for Tyrann Mathieu to be going this far into his career.
Yes. Oh, I think there's definitely going to be a team that takes him. I would love him on any team that I'm a fan of. Because I think, especially in today's NFL, you can't ever have too many defensive backs.
No.
I think we're going to get to a point where you have more more safeties than linebackers on a team. I think eventually a lot of teams will be moving to only 5 or 4 linebackers on the team and having like 6 safeties.
Yeah. I mean, with the way the league's evolving, the quarterback play, the schemes, I mean, it's like it's a track meet. You know? Yeah. Everybody's throwing.
And then not only that, but being able to get quicker and being able to stop the pass.
Running backs out of it.
Yeah. So that was kind of the last of the safeties I had prepped for today. Do you have any other ones you wanted to mention?
One that I'll just mention that's an intriguing prospect, particularly comes from a small school at Illinois State, is Christian Uphoff.
Nice.
He's a good athlete. He's a big kid. He made a lot of plays, obviously, at the small school level. One of the knocks that I saw on him, particularly, were level of competition, which is fair. How's he going to play against people at higher caliber, higher athleticism? But the good news is he at least looks the part where he could match up with those people. And because he plays at Illinois State, and I don't know the coaches there, and I'm not trying to mock that, but typically they're not Bama coaches. So maybe you can coach a guy up like that would be able to transition. And that's the argument, too, with regards to his eye discipline. One of the other knocks was he tend to bite on the run reads that were play action and maybe double moves. And, again, that might be a factor of coaching. Mm-hmm. When you could take a guy with raw athleticism that's popping on people's radars, even with a small school like Illinois State, not a whole lot of tape on him, but he's somebody to maybe keep an eye on, especially when you have a draft like this where a lot of the safeties are kind of clumped up with question marks.
Yeah. Dude, I dig it. Thanks again for coming on. It's great to talk defensive backs with you. Any final thoughts on anybody where you think?
No, big fan of Patrick Surtain, and we never said it before, but J.C. Horn. I mean, you called him from the beginning, but you know, he one of his comps that I heard recently was that he plays like Aqib Talib, and I wholeheartedly agree with his attitude. He's got a little edge to his game. You know, I just think that he's at least the top 4 or 5 corners that you take. I think teams are going to be happy with.
Yes, well, I think he's going to be probably one of the top 2 corners
for sure. I just mean in summary. This is a good draft for corners. Let's not overthink it. Similar to the quarterbacks, most of them are going to be very successful. And I think with regards to the corners, I think you might have like 3 or 4 Pro Bowlers out of that.
Yeah, and then the safeties in this draft, again, it's a lot of role players. Like whether you're talking about Hamza Naziruddin and Divine Diablo, who are going to be kind of quasi-safety linebackers,
right?
Or Elijah Moulding, Ardarius Washington, Javon Holland, who are going to be kind of quasi-safety slot corners. Or, you get Richie Grant and Andre Cisco and Jamar Johnson, who could be, single high free safety guys who could just be crazy ball hawks and make plays. And then you have Trevon Moore, who could be that, I think, the safe floor kind of safety where you're like, we need a better safety room. We need to get better at this. We need better coverage. We need to, if you like moving your safety close to the line of scrimmage sometimes and then kind of having to play too deep, he's kind of a good role for that. So I think it's a good safety class. There's not a spectacular star talent.
Yeah.
So overall, if you want, you can follow the show at Draftvice on Twitter, at Draftvice_football on Instagram. You can follow me at BROJO. Death is in the end of life. Punch, like a delicious drink in the summer or the winter, depending on when you want to drink punch. Parties. People drink punch at parties. Also, just don't follow Ricky. He doesn't want you to follow him.
Yeah, it's weird.
He doesn't like when
Not
I follow him.
Not a social media guy, so just any follows you would give to me, just give to Woj.
There you go. And then like, follow, subscribe, leave comments, and then tune in. Draft night, we are doing live draft coverage. We will be in Nanuet, New York, which is, like I said before, the heart of New York, where anybody who's ever been to New York has been to Nanuet goes, this is where you want to go.
This is New York.
This is where the Regal Theater used to be because it closed because of COVID.
Why isn't this
so
the
sad. It really should be because Albany is way too far.
It's too far.
It is way.
You get a traffic ticket in New York. It's like, okay, I have to plan a weekend.
Oh, yes. I've dealt with quite a few of those. And, yes, tune in. It's a live show at the Spot. It's a billiards hall, Spot Billiards in Nanuet, New York, but also live streamed. So, yes, tune into that as well. Have a good night.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous about the past and about the future.